Welcome to a Psychodelicious conversation on mental health issues and trends from two local mental health professionals in the greater Lansing area. I'm Michael Stratton, LMSW.
And I'm Morgan Bowen, DNP, PMHNP, and we're here to provide you with a deep dive into the human experience of consciousness and beyond. Our aim is to be educational and entertaining, so just kick back and open your ears and your minds.
Hey, I'm Michael Stratton.
And I'm Morgan Bowen.
And we are here talking about schizophrenia. And I was just brought up to current date. I made a statement in the first section of this where I called patients schizophrenics. And Morgan pointed out to me that it's not schizophrenics. That's not the term to be used anymore. It's people with schizophrenia, which makes sense. They do the same thing with alcoholism these days, where they've removed that from the DSM. They don't call people alcoholics anymore. They don't even use the term alcoholism. They use substance use disorder,
alcohol use disorder,
mild, moderate, whatever.
And why is it done that way?
Well, it's kind of a pejorative term. It's kind of a judgmental term, and it's a strong identification. Like, glad to meet you, I'm schizophrenic. Glad to meet you, I'm alcoholic. Versus like, this is who I am, and I have this condition.
Yeah. So it doesn't define the person.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about, in part in this hour as well, or this half hour, or this 27 minutes.
Well, we wanted to talk too about a creature. Well, we were going to talk first about a creature in your life.
Well, this is going to get this is how we're finally going to get mail.
Yeah,
is that I have a feral cat. We have a feral cat that lives on our porch.
You live in Lansing. You live in Lansing. You live in the city.
We have a nice porch, and we have cats that come up on our porch occasionally. But this one
enclosed porch or open?
It's an open. It's an open porch, and so this one, she's got this big fur coat. We call her Thundercat. She's a beautiful cat, and she would just be hanging around a lot. And as the weather changed, I bought one of these kind of tent houses for her and set it up. She didn't go into it for the longest time, but finally she did. And it's got a heated pad. We just plugged it in and it would be a heated pad. And when it gets to these really, really super cold nights, and I feel good that she had a heated pad, and we just found out that the heated pad isn't working. So she's been out there in the cold. At least she has some shelter.
She got some shelter.
Yeah.
She got some shelter, but I feel bad about it.
Do you have straw or something? Is there anything in there to insulate?
There's no straw right now, no. But I'm looking for feedback from the listeners. So they should look up Psychodelicious Conversation and send us suggestions. By the time it gets to us, it'll be springtime, though.
By the time they finish writing out a Psychodelicious Conversation, which is the email, by the way, a psychodeliciousconversation@gmail.com.
That's it. That's the one. And we're waiting for...
That's why you guys hire me.
That's right.
True.
That's
we
good.
might have to hire a shorter email address, but... Well, how do you know that it wasn't working? Has it not been working the whole time, or
finally
it went out?
Well, we don't know if it has not been working the whole time or not. But Kathy went out, and the thing is, when we step out, because we bring out food and water for her every morning. I do.
Do you know it's a her?
We're pretty sure.
Yeah,
that's our fantasy. Anyway, that's. Why the faces?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I feel more protected.
Do you want a cat family?
It was an odd way to describe it. That's all. It just was odd.
Anyway.
Well, I was wondering if she had been pregnant or you'd seen.
No, she's fixed because she's got a clipped ear.
Oh, she does. She has clipped ear.
So that's a sign that a feral cat has been fixed and declawed. So she's helpless out in the world.
Oh, that's an important piece.
Yeah,
That's not always good. I don't think
we feel more protective of her because of that. Anyway, we tried to call her they them for a while, but it just didn't fit. Anyway, what was the question? Oh, how did we know that the heating pad didn't work? The heating pad, my wife went out and she said, I'm going to put my hand inside the house just to feel it, see how warm it is, and realized it was cold in there.
Freezing
and
cold.
It was like, that's not working at all.
Well, but the warmth of the cat, like when they're in the enclosed space, right? They can kind of curl up, and then their body heat heats up the space.
I would
much more than we could. Yes.
I would. Yeah. She does have that big fur coat, which is I think.
Now, would you ever think about letting this cat into your house?
I've tried. I've left the door open. I've said, "Come on in, come on in."
So you have no pets.
We have no pets currently, and that's the other thing that people, if they want to.
Well, it kind of, may segue a little bit into our conversation of treatment with schizophrenia.
Oh, right. We got that going on.
Because people and cats have a right to, self-determination. They can decide if they would like to come in. Yeah. I mean, you're thinking, hey, come into my really warm house. It's great in here. We're going to take care of you. The fantasy is real. And that cat says, no way. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with that.
That's right.
And it's hard for you to understand why that cat is not coming into your house, but
see, people
decide anyway.
People can refuse treatment, and someone who has schizophrenia can also refuse treatment.
And it's very frustrating sometimes for us as clinicians, as well as family, and kind of maybe the community at large. Why would somebody not engage with treatment if there is a treatment? Why are they not participating in it? And wouldn't things overall just be better if they did?
I'm curious. We probably should have talked about it in the first part, but generally, in your experience, do you find that folks with schizophrenia are aware that they have it?
Yes. Well, maybe not in an acceptance sort of way, because there are times in which they think people are lying to people are lying to them, and it's a conspiracy. And
that's why I was wondering.
But there are people that do. And a lot of times the goal of the trajectory of treatment, because it's going to be lifelong if somebody has, schizophrenia. So the goal is to really establish really good treatment relationships, really good relationships with their doctor or their nurse practitioner or their therapist, so that you can, continue a relationship throughout all the phases. So if somebody is able to engage with treatment, has a good experience, recognizes that the treatment is helpful for them, then there's a better chance that they are going to accept the, that they do have an illness. Okay. So I've seen it both ways. I've seen people who come into the hospital, this is when I was working in the hospital, who know that they're moving into because it's not that it's not that the person is completely psychotic all the time. There's ebbs and flows to times in which it's more serious than other times. So if somebody's moving into a more acute episode, meaning like they're feeling like their illness is getting worse, there are some people who will present and they'll come to the hospital. They'll come to the doctor and say, I think I need to be in the hospital. I think my meds aren't working or something's happening.
Okay.
And then there are other people who would be maybe, and a lot of the homeless population, a lot of the unhoused population, there's a significant amount of mental illness among the unhoused population. And so there is a lot of schizophrenia.
Yep.
And so people who would rather, live in that situation without treatment, because they just don't feel like they need it, or that that they're sick, or that there's really anything wrong with them.
Yeah. It's a difficult thing. And when I was working more directly with mentally ill folks, there was a lot more services available. So there was a lot more housing available. There was kind of wraparound services for people in mental health. I was thinking too of the progression, when someone gets in the door for treatment, and you can start to use some medication that helps lessen the hallucinations, helps them relax a little bit, helps them to think more clearly. All of those things kind of help a person get stabilized. And then if they can establish relationships with someone in the helping profession, and they can do some family therapy and some other things in terms of linking them with community services of some kind, their life can improve. They can get to the point where maybe they will be able to hold a job, or function at the job that maybe they have already. All of those kinds of things. And there's a number of different kinds of treatment modalities that actually do work in therapy with people who have schizophrenia. So CBT, in terms of helping a person do problem solving, helping a person with relaxation techniques, help a person improve in terms of their self-esteem, some of that negative self-talk that a person does, they can start identifying that. And the other one is ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, which when it started, they used populations of people that had a pretty severe mental illness profile, often people who had schizophrenia. And what part of their, it was interesting because part of where they came from was the idea of like, we don't know how well we can work with your symptoms, but we can help you accept your symptoms. And given that you have that, what are your values and what do you want to spend your life on? What are you doing when you're doing something and you're really having a great time doing it and you're enjoying it? What is that? And when I went through the training for ACT, that's what they would focus on. They showed examples of that, of people who said, it's not that my symptoms are that much better, but I'm spending a lot more time enjoying my life because I'm spending it with these people, or I'm doing my artwork, or I'm building things, and I love to build things, and they're just doing more things that they're committed to doing, and that can help too. Because I think there was probably a period of time when people didn't think of therapy and schizophrenia as things that they didn't see it as very treatable, but it's very treatable as it turns out.
It is treatable. And there's a number of different programs and approaches, and it kind of depends on what's available in the person's area. Some places that have really great mental health systems, maybe connected to a university or, a hospital, has a lot of innovative programs to really both work with the person in terms of like medications. I mean, the medication treatment is fairly, I don't want to say routine, but we have a group of medications that are, usually effective to some extent.
What's being used these days? What are they?
Second generation antipsychotics, and those include things like Abilify, Zyprexa,
do they still use Thorazine and that kind of stuff?
Invega and Risperdal. No, not so much. Thorazine is a first generation, and so used like a lot, and then in Haldol as well. You do see it. You still see it used, particularly in treatment-resistant cases. But they have a lot of side effects. The first generations do. All of the medications have side effects, but the first generations tend to be more significant.
The tardive dyskinesia.
Yeah.
You used to see people who would have kind of a twitchiness or a strange, kind of facial.
It's like an involuntary kind of facial movement that is persistent, rhythmic, and like, what's the word? It doesn't go away. It stays around.
Yeah. Chronic.
Yeah. So, and there's there's ways to administer the medication with an injection, where the person just needs the medication injection once a month, or sometimes once every 2 months or 3 months. So that is also a big component of treatment, and a lot of that is through community mental health and as opposed to like what we do in the outpatient world. It's usually more coordinated through CMH, or it's more easily coordinated through CMH.
Is it always chronic though? I mean, if you're schizophrenic or if you have schizophrenia, you have those symptoms. Is it always chronic?
If it's true, I'm doing air quotes here, like, a true schizophrenia, it develops at the age 17 to 24, has both the hallucinations and or the delusions, as well as what is called the negative symptoms, which are poor grooming, oftentimes like the cognition can be, like the thinking can be a little bit more rigid or less, the learning abilities and things are not as high. So in cases that have the combination of all of those things, it tends to be chronic and lifelong.
So another question I have is, what would a person rule out? I mean, what other symptoms might be similar? And I'm wondering about people, for instance, who might experience dissociative states and then might come to the conclusion like, oh my gosh, I must have schizophrenia because I'm having this dissociative state where I feel like I'm just practically out of body, or I found myself walking for several blocks. I had no idea where I was.
Yeah. So, well, the first thing we always look at, I mean, if somebody's coming in to do, like an evaluation, they would, do some type of CT of the head or a brain scan to see if there's any type of brain tumor or brain mass that could be. So if you have a mass in the head, it can, in your brain, it can mimic the symptoms. So that is one of the big rule outs. If somebody is, in the community, somebody out there is thinking that maybe they have schizophrenia, what you're, it would be a dissociative state is, that feeling of out of body, that feeling of experience is not really in line with like a psychotic. Like the psychosis is really seeing things, hearing things, that are persistent, that are happening on a regular basis. Sometimes people will describe, somebody who does not necessarily have a classic psychotic illness will, describe like seeing a shadowy figure at the end of their bed. Sometimes people who experience sleep paralysis, where they kind of wake up and they're half awake and they're kind of paralyzed and they have a really scary experience. Some people would describe that as a psychotic thing, but it's really not in the same realm as, something that's happening daily or frequently and is more consistent and impactful on the person's day to day. Yeah.
I a couple of different times I've worked with people who had really pretty severe OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of the individuals I was working with, part of their obsession was, I have this condition, I have this condition, I have this condition. They were really pretty sure there was something really wrong with them. And one of the things they would latch onto was, I have schizophrenia. I know I'm going crazy. That's what this feels like. And, but it asks, do you hear things that other people don't hear? Do you have this kind of thought? And they didn't, but they just had the fear of that. And, yeah,
it's a component, I would say, of like illness anxiety disorder, which is very related to kind of an obsessional thought that I have, a hypochondria. It is hypochondria when a person thinks that they may have X, Y, or Z. And then I think it speaks to just the cultural awareness of this really severe illness called schizophrenia. That is, the person is, kind of, there's this idea that the person is totally crazy and they're going to get locked up in, the hospital forever and ever. And so for somebody that has like a anxiety disorder related to health, like that is very much could be a huge fear of theirs.
Well, the movie Psycho, where,
Norman Bates, Psycho.
Norman Bates dresses up as, I'm going to give the movie away. So it's
spoiler alert.
It's 70 years old.
Yeah, it's just 40 years later or whatever.
Shoot, I was going to watch that
50,
tonight.
60, 70.
Yeah. Norman Bates dresses up as his dead mother and then kills women in the shower, or one particular woman. It's pretty close.
Sound. You might have.
There's somebody out there going, I'm not going to watch that movie now.
It's such a good movie.
But it is a great movie. It's
classic.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. But that's that idea of someone being psycho is that they're a killer or psycho killer. With David Byrne and the Talking Heads doing that. People that are psychotic rarely are murderous kinds of people.
No, they're not. And there are times in which somebody is potentially a danger to others, but that is pretty rare. And it's much more often, like we talked about in the previous episode, that a person is a danger to themselves because they just are so plagued and tortured by the experiences that they have that they just don't want to, or there are times where the voices are telling them to hurt themselves. So it's much more common that there's self-directed violence.
I think it's good that you guys state that, because I think the movies really do portray it the other way around.
Yeah.
And most anybody, like I said, most of my experiences going to be from movies. The unhoused, I have run into that. Now that I think about it, I felt uncomfortable, but I didn't feel threatened.
Right.
Yeah, there is something unsettling. I mean, deeply unsettling to see somebody who just appear, they're gesticulating and talking to themselves and disheveled and and that yeah, I think it's unsettling for most of us to see that, and so I don't, I think that's a common thing. But the transition for the thing, the sense that somebody is a danger to them, I think is very much a story that's told to us. I mean, that's a cultural projection. It's a it's an othering. I mean, there's lots of examples of cultural scapegoats that we have that, we kind of target our fears on.
They say it's like 1% of the general population has schizophrenia, which is
a very
pretty
low percentage.
Low percentage, but a high number at the same time.
Yeah.
There used to be types of schizophrenia. Do they still have that? Like they used to call hebephrenics and
chronic. Yes, there is, but less so than there used to be. There's catatonic there's a schizophrenia catatonic type. So there's in the world of psychiatry there is the ability to specify, but we don't focus in current diagnosis as much on the types as they used to.
Yeah.
But the two big ones, I guess, that come to mind are, when there's an element of catatonia, so that's a completely still state. The person is often in a rigid or a position that they don't move from for long periods of time, days, sometimes lots longer than that. So that does happen, and then there's paranoid schizophrenia. And now it's called schizophrenia, I think paranoia type or in the diagnosis. So that's where there's a fear of, that somebody's after them or that people are out to get them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but there is, I guess my big thing I loved working as a nurse with people with serious mental illness, because there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of joy. There's there's a very unique perspective that people with mental illness bring, and it's a shade of the human experience. I mean, it's definitely a part of the human experience. And if you are able to move beyond the kind of fear that a person that you or I or whoever may have, or that otherness, that they're so bizarre, I don't want to be around them. I don't want, I want them to stay over here and me to be over here. If you can bridge that, then you can really connect with just a very interesting way of thinking, a different experience that has a vibrancy, very often very artistic, very thoughtful. And I just really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed that.
That matches my experience too. When I was working with people with schizophrenia, they were by and large well over 90% enjoyable people to work with, and were very creative, sometimes very, very funny, very interesting senses of humor. Often coming in really, really scared, but as time went on and you got to know them better and they relaxed, you would see that side of them, and they were a lot of fun and often.
Yeah. And one other thing,
very endearing.
So there is a book by a woman with schizophrenia. It's called "The Center Cannot Hold," which is the quote of a very famous poet that I cannot remember. Maybe Jedalian can look up this book, because I also can't remember her name. She is a professor of law. She's a lawyer and a professor of law. I know she was at UCLA for a long time.
Did she do a TED Talk?
I think she does do a TED Talk. Yeah, I can picture her.
Was it Ellen Sachs?
Yep, Ellen Sachs.
Oh, that's what I thought.
So she's a huge advocate for. So it's SAKS. Ellen is
Crib Notes.
ELLYN. She has a wonderful book that is a memoir of her experience, of her journey with schizophrenia. She is a very smart woman. She grew up in Florida. She went to one of the Ivies, I can't remember which, Princeton, something like that. Very smart. She went to law school, all of which her illness developed as she was doing this. Yeah. Became a lawyer and is a huge advocate for the rights of persons with mental illness, especially as it relates to use of restraint.
You also mentioned NAMI in the first section of this, and NAMI is the National Association for Mental Illness. Family-oriented support system for family members, and also incorporating folks that have the mental illness themselves. And it's a great source for that. They hired me a number of years ago to do a motivational interviewing training. And what I found out by doing that is that, just empathy is something that works really, really well. And the ability to sidestep conflict, to roll with resistance, to do that kind of thing really worked well with folks that have schizophrenia.
And it's really, they have a family program especially for families with people with serious mental illness. There's a lot of education and kind of trying to understand their experience, as well as logistics of what if the person is not in treatment and not taking their medication, and how do we manage that? Maybe set up some boundaries, things like that, like practical. And there's a support element of families, in groups where they meet, they mentor other families. I mean, the illness impacts a huge amount of people in the network of the person. So the family needs support too.
Yeah. A Psychodelicious conversation is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is no substitute for therapy and should not be treated as such. If you feel a need for real therapy, you should consult your local provider, Google therapy or therapists in your area, check with community mental health, or a suicide hotline if you are feeling suicidal.
Mike and Morgan welcome your questions, feedback, or dilemmas. Feel free to send us an email at psychodeliciousconversation@gmail.com. That is a Psychodelicious, PSYCHODELICIOUS conversation@gmail.com.
The views expressed on this podcast are solely the opinions of Mike Stratton and Morgan Bowen, and do not reflect the views or opinions of any site broadcasting this podcast. Replication of this podcast without written permission is strictly prohibited.